Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis. So give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or a comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that when you're getting on the show, you're well organized and you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we'll not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, talk that get results. Also, you can follow our live video stream on our YouTube channel at Vaughan Radio and our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio. Thank you all again for joining us. Tonight, we have two segments on the program. The first segment is a developer here on the island of Nevis. He has a project in the works, and he is here to give us an update on that project. We're very pleased to have with us this evening Mr. Simon Lowe. Good evening. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me as well. I thought it would be a great opportunity to come on your show, and thank you for inviting me, because as many Nevisians know, there have been plans for quite a long time to build a new hotel resort at Indian Castle. As a resident of Nevis for many years, people are constantly asking me, what's happened to the resort? When is it going to take place? Well, initially it was designated as an Aman resort, but in late 2019 it was rebranded as One and Only. But almost immediately, unfortunately, the pandemic struck, and although agreements with the NIA were signed in early 2021, COVID made it impossible for us to start construction last year due to federal restrictions relating to the pandemic. As the developer, however, I'm pleased to announce that my team will start the work needed to obtain final planning permission as soon as the NIA, who are shareholders in our company, confirm their acceptance of the revised construction loans so that due diligence can be completed. When I met the Premier last month, he told me that Cabinet would review the new timetable and would get back to me within the week. Whereas I understand that he and his Cabinet have many pressing matters to deal with, we will not be able to start to break ground this year unless we get the go-ahead now. I know and I'm told that he is preoccupied with forthcoming federal elections, and we all wish him well and hope. It would be great, actually, if Nevis could have the first Prime Minister of the Federation. But I do hope he'll make time to get the Cabinet to review and confirm the go-ahead that we so need. This project's really, really important for Nevis. Nevis has very high unemployment at the moment as a result of the pandemic and so on. And we will be able to create, and we will create, over 250 jobs, not only during the construction period, but once the hotel and the residences open, that will increase. So the One and Only will help reduce the high level of unemployment in Nevis and make a major contribution to reducing the annual budget deficit. And most importantly of all, since the Four Seasons opened over 30 years ago, there has been no major hospitality development on the island, and incidentally no major development at all over at Gingerland on the Atlantic side. We are taking the bit between our teeth to make a development on the Atlantic side, which has its challenges in terms of wind and so on. But I also have to say that when I first went over there, I was taken by a young man who at the time was a lawyer working with me to acquire a piece of land in Nevis. And I told him of my dream. I told him that I wanted to develop a super luxury hotel here, and he took me to Indian Castle. And he said to me, Simon, this would be a great place to do this. And do you know who that man was? That was Mark Brantley. So he's been tremendously helpful to me to help put this together and realize my dream, and given the backing of his government and the deal that we signed last year in January. But we really need now to be able to push that final button and get that renewed approval, and I hope that he'll be able to do that for us.
You hope he'll be able to do that, and you basically are anxious in getting started this year.
Yes.
Is there a downside, perchance you don't?
Well, the only downside is that, like with every development arrangement, the bank that is giving us the senior loan has to carry out due diligence. And technically speaking, something can always go wrong in that due diligence. But we've been through the due diligence last year with another organization who I left last year because they moved the goalposts. During COVID, they suddenly decided that they would still give us the money, but there were conditions. And the conditions were that we would sell so many villas as per the drawdowns that we needed. I couldn't agree to that because it would put the whole company in jeopardy. And they could have, had we not been able to fulfill those obligations, come in and taken the company over. So I rejected them. And therefore, in August, September last year, set about finding a new loan provider. And we did that very successfully, and we submitted the proposal and the offer to the Cabinet via Helene Lewis, who's the negotiator and chief legal advisor to the NIA, over a month ago. And this is a much better offer with no preconditions in terms of villa sales. So we're very happy with that. So I don't really see, in terms of the due diligence, that anything can really go wrong, because we've been through the process before. I'm pretty confident, providing we get the NIA go ahead, and there are a couple of items that they need to agree to, which they'd agreed to previously, but there's been this delay because of COVID and so on. We will definitely, I'm confident, be able to break ground by the end of this year.
You get the sense, though, that the NIA is as eager as you are to see this project going?
Well, the NIA own 25% of the company. And I think most people know that everybody's been looking forward to some development on Nevis. I know that there are some people who don't wish to be dependent on hospitality because it's been difficult. The Four Seasons, which has been the mainstay of the hospitality industry here on the island, has gone through a lot of problems. I chaired the Homeowners Association for 16 years, during which time Four Seasons went into bankruptcy, were being run by the Wells Fargo Bank for 7 years. And that was very difficult. They didn't get any investment and so on. But the Caribbean, and particularly Nevis St. Kitts, has had a very strong association with hospitality. When I came here first in 1995, and when I then put forward this idea after Mark Brantley introduced me to it, to what was then the Premier of Nevis, Joseph Perry, he welcomed it with open arms. Now, unfortunately, it got put back many years because of the financial crisis, the bankruptcy of Four Seasons, and then we had to wait again for somebody to buy it. And fortunately, Bill Gates came to the rescue in 2016-17 and then set about renovating the Four Seasons, which needed substantial renovation. They reopened in December 2019, but unfortunately, 3 months later, the pandemic hit, and, we were all back to square one. So I think everybody is on the same page about wanting this development. Having this development take place in Gingerland is a particular bonus, I think, because that side of the island has not had any development. And so the passion of the project and the passion for Nevis that I've shared now since I've been here for 25 years I hope will bring this to fruition finally.
Here are some things about this project. People hearing about it will probably say or ask, which is not germane to you, which they have asked on a number of other projects. And you indicated that you've been here on Nevis for a while. You're a citizen as well.
No, I'm not a citizen, but I'm a permanent resident.
Permanent resident, okay, yeah. As well. So, you've mentioned earlier that the major development in terms of hotels that we've had was the Four Seasons, and that was over 30 years ago. But along the way, you might have heard of Newfound with the Ritz-Carlton. You might have heard of the development which is supposed to take place at Herbert Beach. You might have heard of the one at the Wyndham Hotel, and so on. Each time you hear about this development, there are press conferences and there are start dates, and then you would hear that the money is here and everything. But what the evidence shows in the end, whatever the reason, nothing has happened, as you have pointed out, for the past 30 years. And this spans varied administrations. Do you think, therefore, that it's natural that the administrations or the persons will want to be extra cautious to almost overcautious?
I absolutely agree. Look, the fact of the matter is that my association has been through Joseph Parry, Vance Amory, and now Mark Brantley. There have been delays that have been frustrating to the NIA in its different formats, and very frustrating to me. I've spent almost 12 years of my life on this, and I've spent a lot of money on it too. And the reasons for the delays are clear. I think I've set those out. I think the difference between myself and these other potential developments is that Nevis as an island is an attractive island, and the hospitality business is one of the main events in the economic calendar, so to speak. So people have been attracted here from Canada, America, England, and so on. They've flown in, they've put proposals, and they've flown out. The difference between them and me is that I've been here for 25 years. I've been here for 25 years, I'm a permanent resident, so I have a great love and passion for the island. And I have pursued this development through substantial hardship and delays, and I'm still here. And the difference is that with all the setbacks that we've had, and we have had setbacks, everybody's had setbacks, but we are actually now ready. That means to say, we have the money available from a very bona fide lender. We have the support of the government, albeit that they have, in fairness, been skeptical of my ability to deliver it because there have been so many delays. But what I'm saying to them now is that, number one, there's nobody else around to do the development, to the best of my knowledge. Number two, I have pursued this and persevered with it, and am now saying to them, look, over the next 6 to 8 months, and it would have been last year had it not been for the pandemic. I mean, the federal government restrictions didn't allow us to bring in our consultants and our surveyors and all kinds of different people that need to come to see it. It was impossible. We couldn't do it. So the agreements that we signed said we must start it within the year. But the year passed because the year was lost to COVID. So all I've said to them is, look, extend it by, reset the clock, extend it by the year that we've lost, and by the end of this year, incidentally, if we don't perform by the end of this year or the very beginning of next year, as time is moving on, I will relinquish. I've tried my very, very best. I believe that we're going to get it done now. But if at the end of this particular effort and period I don't succeed, I will put my hands up and say, sadly, I have failed. But I have to be able to go forward now to deliver this as I believe we can.
You know, it is interesting hearing directly from you because I don't know whether or not it is because of how a lot of the other projects have been presented mostly by the government, and then you end up with, and you have pointed out that you have done it across various administrations. But what happens sometimes is that when the politics get involved, if I'm in opposition, for instance, I would say to the public that that project is a bluff. It's not going to come.
Yeah.
And so it begins to create doubt in the public's mind. And so what we find often is when you have these projects, the listing of what we've went through in a little earlier, the spokesman normally is the government. And sometimes along political lines, depending who you support, you tend to believe or not to believe. So it was good hearing from you directly from the developer's standpoint. Well, let me ask you this.
Let me intervene, if I may say, and respond to that position. First and foremost, obviously, I'm not a citizen. I'm a permanent resident, so I can't vote. I'm totally apolitical here. I do not support neither the NRP nor the CCM. In fact, I support anybody who will help me deliver this project. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I've worked with Mr. Parry, I've worked with Mr. Amery, and I've worked with Mark Brantley. I'm not interested in the politics here. I don't even understand the politics here, and it's not for me to understand. It is for me to deliver. And I believe that across the consensus between the two parties, whatever their differences are, and to be honest with you, I've always had difficulty understanding what the differences are because I don't really see the policy disputes here, but we won't get into that. I will work with anybody who will help me, and I have worked with both parties to deliver the project. So for me, this is a commercial project in which, incidentally now, the government as a major shareholder in the project stands to reap substantial benefits in terms of stamp duties, social security through the extra employment that it creates, and also as a shareholder through dividends and the sale of villas. This is the largest single project on this island, apart from possibly the geothermal project, which is still in the making, to have happened in 30 years. So, I must disassociate myself from the politics. I must work with whoever is in power to help deliver the project.
As we stand now, and how hopeful are you that you will meet? You're trying to get it done by the end of the year. You have, you said, maybe a meeting or two, or you're waiting on the NIA to, get certain go-aheads and stuff like that. Let me just hold that question. I think someone wants to join us.
Okay.
Let's see. Good evening. Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Yes. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air. Could you go ahead?
Yes. Good evening. I need to ask the gentleman if he has obtained title for the land that is in question.
You got that's it, caller.
For now.
Okay. If you have obtained title for the land in question.
The answer is yes. The NIA transferred the land to our company, in which they are shareholders, back in January 2021.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see. The question I was asking is, what is your optimism?
Well, I'm a very
point, yes.
optimistic person, and I don't give up. And that is why I'm still standing here before you and the people of Nevis, almost 12 years after the beginning of this project. I'm very passionate about it because I'm a hotelier, and the vision of this great and beautiful project I need to see come to fruition. The NIA have nothing really to do other than to put before Cabinet, which they've said, Mark Brantley told me when I met him a month ago that he would get round to it, to present it to Cabinet, and I know he's been preoccupied with other things, but all we need is basically a letter, an addendum, which will address the changes that have happened since January 2021. That means to say the timeline, because of the delays through COVID, has to be extended effectively for the year. But secondly, I need to be able to sell some of my shares to investors because the cost of the project has increased. Everybody is aware of how prices have increased over the last year. And on the international market, whether it be the price of steel or wood or cement or freight costs, has gone up considerably. So the project cost has increased, and I have to be able to meet that increase in cost by raising more money, which we're in the process of doing, and it's been indicated that we've got that money to hand. So we've managed to come through this difficult period, get the senior loan approved, signed, sealed, delivered. We've delivered that to the NIA, and all we need is for the NIA to address the few points that I left with Premier Brantley about 4 weeks ago now.
Okay, let me take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, good evening again. I need to ask the gentleman if he has another way of getting more skin in the game so as to convince the NIA that they are committed.
What? I'm sorry.
That more, well, he said the caller seemed to say more something in the game.
Skin in the game.
Right,
yes.
to convince the NIA. But, so you got it then? You got a question?
Yeah,
again?
now I've got it. The answer is that the way these deals are structured in the current world situation is that the sponsor or the company, which is me, together with the NIA, have to be able to deliver approximately 50% of what you call skin in the game, and the rest of it can be raised through international finance. That we have done. That we have done. So we have independent investors. We do need the NIA to agree to issue the alien licenses for those investors, which one or two have been put before them, which are on hold. But the skin in the game is there, as you put it.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. Question for the gentleman. Have you considered selling shares to Nivision?
I would be very happy to sell shares to Nivisions. The fact of the matter is... Oh, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
The fact of the matter is that Nivisions, of course, being citizens, don't need alien licenses. So if you feel that there are some of your compatriots who would like to become shareholders in the company, I would be more than delighted to make available some of my shares for you to buy.
Okay. And the NIA, well, what I'm gathering, is that you had to make some certain changes in order to get the new financing.
Yes.
You therefore have your end of the deal ready to go.
Yes.
So it's obvious, therefore, isn't it, that the NIA now will have to look at their end of the game and make sure that they have their ducks lined up.
Well, I think, as I
yes.
said to the Premier when we met last month, is that if this does not go ahead, both the NIA, the people of Nevis, and myself have a lot to lose. If this does go ahead, both the people of Nevis, the NIA, and myself have a lot to gain. I'm putting forward now the fact that despite the delays, and specifically the delays of the last year through the pandemic, we are ready to go. We just need their endorsement for the small changes made to the timetable and the lender, because the lender was Mr. A and the lender is now Mr. B. And incidentally, Mr. B is a much better lender than Mr. A, because apart from anything else, the Caribbean Development Bank, who is a major shareholder in the company who is lending us the money, have confirmed they're going to lend us the money. There could be no better endorsement than that.
Though the NIA may not have indicated it clearly, do you get a sense of what, if you're presenting that all seems glorious and ready to go?
Yeah.
Though they may not have said, well, I'm holding because of A or B.
Yeah.
And sometimes by human nature, when somebody doesn't tell you something, you give a good educated guess.
Right.
Do you have any idea why someone hearing that the deal is so good on all fronts may not be going ahead as urgently or as quickly?
Yes, I believe, and the Premier has said that to me to my face, and I know him well. He says that the Cabinet have lost confidence in my ability to deliver the deal. And they have some justification for that, because it's been a long time in the making. But in the meantime, to be fair to him and to me and to them, number one, the people of Nevis who've been waiting for this for some time have had nothing to lose. They've lost nothing. The land over at Indian Castle, which is now within the company, has been grazing land for, I have no idea, hundreds of years probably. No other developer has come to do a development on that site. There have been plenty of developers coming in to Nevis, and you mentioned Newfound, but that was of course next door to the Four Seasons on the Caribbean side. There have been few takers for developments on the Atlantic side. So I understand their frustration. My frustration is as equal, if not greater, than theirs. What I'm saying is, and I'm repeating what I said to you a few moments ago and to your audience, is that if this doesn't come to fruition by the end of this year, I will put up my hands and say I failed. But I'm ready to go. But I cannot go. I cannot move forward unless I get that re-endorsement. It's not an endorsement. We've had the endorsement before because we signed agreements. The agreements are still in place. We just need clarification that they will accept the new loan offer, allow me to sell those shares that are necessary to that investor, confirm the loan that we've agreed with the Bank of Nevis, and to grant the alien licenses to those people who are being vetted as foreign nationals to buy shares in the company, as I myself had to do as well. So it's a question of trust. It's a question of taking that point that we've backed this project for several years through 3 administrations. Will we continue to back it for the next few months? I hope the answer is yes. If the answer is no, it's a very big loss of opportunity, and incidentally, considerable amounts of money for the Nevis Island administration and for the people of Nevis in terms of jobs lost.
Okay, Mr. Lowe, let's end it there and see where we go from here.
Thank you so much for having me on your show tonight.
And
thank you very much.
Thank you for coming and have been discussed with this topic. And please follow up with us and let us know what happens.
We will do. All right. Thank you, sir. Good night.
Good evening. The first segment of the program, developer Simon Lowe, who is the developer of the Hotel One. Let me just check my notes here. One and only. It started out as the Aman Resort a number of years ago. I think he mentioned about 12 years ago. Now it is reorganized under One and only. You heard what he just said in terms of where the project is at from the developer standpoint and the Nevis Island administration standpoint. As I said, we'll follow up on that and see what is happening. The second segment is next.
You're listening to Vaughn Radio from the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results with our second segment. First segment, Simon Lowe, a developer of a potential hotel here in Nevis. The second segment, Conrad Nair-Liebert. Good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to your staff here at Vaughan Radio. Good evening to Mr. Stanley, my colleague this evening. Webbo, I'm happy to be here again, and without any further ado, I would just say thanks for inviting me, Webbo.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and again it is an obligation on my part to always be here and to disseminate information to our good people of St. Kitts and the gracious people of Nevis, those who listen to us on the World Wide Web and throughout the Caribbean Basin. Webbo, it was interesting in listening to the gentleman of the first segment and to understand clearly as to how the people who are from the outside would see the vast amount of land in Nevis and ultimately would like to get their toe or a leg in or up with reference to acquisition, participation, and ultimately valuation. Webbo, I got plenty more to say on this in this regard. A caller called in and asked if Nevisians would be able to buy shares, and his answer was quite interesting. Sure enough, he would like to sell some of his to Nevisians. Now, I hope if he gets a negative, he would not leave, although he stated that if he doesn't get the okay from the NIA, he will throw up his hands in frustration and ultimately would lose the passion. Well, if you have something on the drawing board, procedurally, as a developer, you should be able to understand that there are many ways forward, and if one way doesn't pan out, you should move to plan B, and if plan B doesn't pan out, move to plan C. We who are developers understand the game, and as a result, a caller called and asked if the land has been acquired, title has been issued, and the answer based on your pressing him was that seemingly the NIA probably would do the necessary paperwork to transfer the land into the company which he has formed, from which NIA would become a shareholder, and as a result, the divisions would get an opportunity to invest, get jobs. NIA would get revenue from the entity as it goes forward after construction, and the whole 9 yards. But like I said, in a case like this, the developer should have plan A, plan B, plan C, and one of those, if he knows what he's doing, well, let me pull that back. One of those should work. So, newfound developers came in, they were granted a hunk of our land, and they haven't done anything. The land is still there, but I believe that they would have put some skin in the game, as you would have put the question to the gentleman. Newfound developers did put some skin in the game, and I think they still have ownership to the land, which means that they coughed up of their own money millions of dollars. Of course, the land has appreciated in quadruple amounts with reference to inflation and higher value for Nevis land. And they all would come, but if they're not willing to put some skin in the game, it's not going to work. It's not going to fly. So the Nevis Island administration has to get involved, but ensure that they leave an eye on the table to keep an eye on those people who are attempting to get their hands on our land without, in fact, putting some skin in the game. Well, I'll leave it there for now.
But you see, but one of the things that you see is interested in that conversation is, and I ask him, well, if somebody is presenting something to you and they show you all the reasons why you should go ahead with this particular thing, and the person is not going along with it, you may not be able to see or understand why, but they obviously do not see it exactly the way you're presenting it or you see it. And to be fair, when I asked that question and I said, well, so what do you think the reason is? And he said, it was rather blunt, and he says the premier is that way, and he says, well, because we have large confidence. And then when you go back to the point that I'd made earlier with Newfound and the geothermal, I didn't mention that one, the Windham Hotel, the hotel that was supposed to be over by the Herbert Beach area, and so on. Now, it is natural that people are going to have a little doubt and then check the T's and the I's and so on and so forth. And then that takes time also. Because remember that on the developer's part, it's taking time. They run into certain instances and so on. But at the end of the day, as I said, let's see what will happen. You have one side himself, the developer, you have the government representing the people of Nevis, and this has gone through varied administrations, so we will see what happens in the end. Naya, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I would hope that it work out for Nevis. A development like that on that side of the island would be good. But we know, we have heard so much about developments in nature of hotels and so forth. We are not too confident that it would happen. But at the same time, we don't want to be of disservice to his attempts and his efforts, and the whole working of the proposal going forward. We will just wish that it can happen for Nevis, and you have repeated himself more than once. It is great opportunity for the people of Nevis and for the country, and so we can only wish him well with that, really. What I wouldn't like to see is lands being tied up for long time, as we are seeing with Newfoundland, and nothing is going on. Got to be very mindful about that. But we know our minds and hearts are open, and hope that things can happen for Nevis.
Well, I look at it from the standpoint that if he is passionate about this development, he should be able to raise a certain amount of capital, and this would be for the acquisition of the land itself, taking the Nevis Island administration out of the picture, and to say, here is my input, my skin in the game, and I will go forward with drafts of the development in terms of getting it prepared. I will put some additional skin in the game to get the land surveyed and acquire the land outright. And also, once you have done those things, you would be on your way to show or to demonstrate your serious intention of being a developer and wanting to bring something to the island of Nevis and its peoples. Ultimately, you've got plenty to gain as a developer of this magnitude, bringing something to Nevis, and ultimately create employment, revenue for the government, and as he enumerated, Social Security, tax, and as the case might be. And we are long awaiting something of this magnitude to occur. We have heard so much about the hotel coming down there at Hanley's Road, but yet we have not seen anything, and here this is another presenter, and if, well, he should worth his salt. He should worth his salt. Let me give him credit for having a brilliant idea. What is required now is for him to put real skin in the game to get the ship floated and sailing to deliver the goods for our people. Well,
Okay, so what else we got?
now we have dry weather, and I understood that there is a desalination plant that is due, one for St. Kitts, one for Nevis, and I do not know if Nevisians are familiar with a desalination plant, but it is one way of turning ocean water into fresh water. It is technology that is used elsewhere in the world, and I am hoping that that technology can be brought here, that is proposed. I hope it comes to fruition, and in that regard we would no longer have to really worry about where we're going to get water. As a child, I always wondered, if no rain falls, what are we going to do? Not knowing that there, at the time, there is technology available to turn ocean water into fresh water. So as the dry weather approaches, which is very evident where I live, the grass, which was green say a month and a half ago, is now brown. And this tells you that we have had brilliant sunshine and the water table is getting lower, and therefore whatever must be done, including desalinization plant, should be done in order to alleviate the water shortage that we have been experiencing. So it's a brilliant idea. Whoever the donors are, I think one of the Arabian countries, or maybe it was the Taiwanese, my memory does not serve me right at this juncture. However, whoever is going to be the donor, we hope that they can put on their running shoes and we get that desalination plant up and running in St. Kitts and Nevis, so as to alleviate the water shortages that we've been experiencing.
Well, I haven't heard much about that, but that will always be a good thing if we can organize a backup, you know. But most importantly, we have to be mindful and be careful with water and the way we use water and the way we conserve and the way we do not conserve at times, you know. Water is actually the bedrock of development here, one of the variables that must be necessary in abundance if you know, developments gonna come to Nevis, like the hotel we've just been hearing about. I do not know at this point that we are in any great difficulties. That time of year when the weather gets dry, just before the hurricane season starts in June. It's not an extraordinarily extended dry weather period at this point. So I don't think at this point there's any need for panic. But if there is technology that is about to come to our shores to turn seawater, salt water, into fresh water, that would be a good thing. One would hope that it can increase probably food production, and it can be good news to the ears of those who contemplate water shortage when they think of you know, extended development in the area of hotels and so forth. And generally we see a lot of homes being built here on Nevis, and so we expect, you know, there's an increase in the usage of water, and it's going to be increasing at an increasing rate, I suppose, as we find more things to do. And of course, some of us being absolutely reckless about water usage. And so that'll be a good thing, a very good thing for the island, you know. But if we may move on just for a little bit and speak to the fact that money is coming. Money is coming, according to the Prime Minister. The people of St. Kitts will be getting 10%. Which to me is a lot of money, absolutely a lot of money. And the people of Nevis, according to Mark Brantley, would be getting 5, but over a period of 2 years they would be getting 15%, which to me is also a lot of money. In the first instance, when I heard about the 10%, but I understand it was something discussed back in Parliament back in October, and brought to fruition now. And some may argue that it's based on political ego or political circumstance that it was brought forward now. Whatever it is, it's a huge increase. It's a huge increase, and some may argue that it was. It would have been something that would have stifled or almost strangled, or would have been difficult for the NIA to come up with. I am happy that Mark Brantley came forward and said exactly that. The truth is, he didn't have to come up with anything at all.
Naya, let me take this. Yes. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, you're on the air.
Yeah, good evening to you, Mr. Webber, and good evening to you,
Hello.
Mr. Stanley.
Hello. Let me just do this before we get started, okay?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yes, I just wanted to make a notation before we start taking the calls. Hello?
Yeah,
Are you
listen.
with me? Yes. So I just wanted to point out that the way we operate always, but I want to emphasize in this particular season, because what we have realized is that people are very passionate and so on these days, which is good. But I just want to point out to the audience that the way we operate, first I'd like to point out that I'm very happy that there are a lot of outlets. You got WhatsApp, you have Facebook, and all these other outlets that people can communicate. In our medium, we encourage persons to participate as well. However, we always say that we want people to be respectful and conduct themselves, towards everybody else in a fair and reasonable manner. For instance, I'm hearing a lot of language now. People calling in and calling people kunu munu and cook and all those kind of things. I want to make it very clear, whether it is let's talk.
Don't put me apart to that.
I did caller. I don't even know who you are.
Yes,
I said I wanted to make this comment before I take the first call. So if you'd like to hang up and then you can call back, it's okay.
No, I don't let me tell because I think...
Right. So, well, let me finish.
Okay.
And you see, that's one of the things we try to do here as well, okay? Now, so these sort of words that people are using to describe other people, I want to make it clear, whether it is let's talk that get results, on the mark, your voice with the NRP, or any other program, the standard and the rules remain the same thing. If you're going to use that language that you're going to put us in legal jeopardy, for instance, you are
Don't
not.
take the call.
You are not. Work with me. I'm going to give you a chance to talk.
Okay.
You are not welcome to participate. You can listen, and you all know that once we lay out the rules, we will act. So when we dump it, we don't care, because we have to go by rules. So whether it is on the mark, let's talk, on the your voice with the NRP, or any other program, whether I am here or not, we've instructed the operators to dump it and then don't take any more. So I just want to make that clear. Caller, go ahead, please.
Very important point you made here. So, Mr. Webber, very important point, and I agree with you 100% with that point here. These things do not call for at this point in time. I will be short. Now, one question then was to was asked to Investor A. Would he consider taking investment to single? I think this was asking that year when you went and asked him in terms of what the alternative. I think this was our people. So I want to commend you on that day. Do not accept no nonsense from the people. Because a lot of things out there being said and done, and people are getting away with it. And Mr. Stanley, you're a good man, and the other gentleman there, you are asking good advice and analytic views that people can feedback on. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, yes, Naya, I think I robbed you of your time.
Yes, we were talking about money's coming, and of course I could imagine where the island administration had to get themselves together in order to make Nubians feel in some way on a level, and to feel that they not just they deserve it, but to fulfill that real need, because we all know the prices went up, and on days that's need for more cash, of course, but even though I personally would be critical to the extent to say 10% is a lot of money, but what I'm also saying that even though Mark on the island administration did find it necessary to make an offer, and did make an offer, he didn't really have to, because I believe at this point Nibijans have to start realizing that the people in St. Kitts and the people in Nevis is in two different boats. And going forward, we would have to deal with our circumstance here on island and be guided by it. And so I personally feel, even though it was a good gesture, Mark didn't have to do that really. I don't think it would have really derogate from his political stance here, or the possibility of he doing good in the election going forward, because I do believe with the last scenario that's been happening, the breaking up of the government and so forth, Namibians have realized that we're in a different boat, and one of the things we would have to do is to make certain sacrifices, and extend our understanding, to the real situation as we go forward. Because it's a time where Namibians have to realize, and I'm saying it again, that we are in a different boat, and we will have to support our people in Nevis when we try to make better for them, even though the better maybe not on par with what is happening in St. Kitts, bearing in mind our financial circumstance.
Let me take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. I am Carlton Dupont from St. Kitts, and I am enjoying this program. I didn't want to call, but I think I should. You see, I want people in St. Kitts to understand something carefully. There's not enough empathy towards the people in Nevis. And look at this. How Dr. Harris could treat Nevisians again like this by not consulting with Mark Brantley, hence making him make a speech. We have been going through this thing too long with Nevisians. It's hurting me. It's bothering me. I feel real bad. It is not that we don't have the knowledge, Webbo. The knowledge is there. But we pretend that we love Nevis. We say we father from Nevis and we mother from Nevis and we got family ties in Nevis. How is it we can look at the God that make us and remember that Nevis is our sister? I am very disappointed, and I want to say this. I believe I know what's going through the members in Nevis' mind why this project has not gone further than where it is now. It's because of the problems, like people look like they think Nevis is just some little pickup country and you do what you want. No! And before I go off the phone, I want people in St. Kitts to know that Nevisians are strong people. And they can hold their own anytime. It doesn't matter what Kittitian try to do to Nevisians. I know. I've been around them enough. I used to do business in Nevis, make more money in Nevis than down here because of the love and the respect that I show for Nevisians. I want St. Kitts people to understand it is time to treat Nevisians for their worth. They're not begging nothing. They're only asking to deal with them in the right way. You all have a good evening. Give somebody else a chance.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good evening. Okay, caller, please call back. I'm encouraging you to be patient with us, and we will get you through. Edric, you wanted to say something while the caller is...
Go ahead, Webbo.
No, okay, now you wanted to get in then?
I was through with that.
You were through with that. You don't want to get in now?
Well, I could get in now.
Well, get in now while nobody's on the line.
Okay, well, based on what Naya has brought to the fore, we are at a dangerous crossroads in our development.
Okay, so here's the person back now.
All right.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Webbo. Mr. Stanley and Noyo. Good evening.
Good evening.
Webbo, as usual, I just called to tell you you're still in the ranks. And I've heard many people for the week. They said they hear me commending you for the way you operate your show. And again, I tell him, yes, Webbo need to be applauded every time, whether you hear him yes or not. Because Webbo, you have what you call public respect for everybody, the whole world who listens to your radio. And nobody at all could say they get fed up of listening to you on your radio because of your attitude. So I wish that everybody who moderate a show could emulate you and have respect for people in authority and people out of authority and the whole world. Webbo, stay in the top 5 in the world best talk show host moderator. Have a good evening, Webbo.
All right, thank you. Stanley, go ahead.
The point I made regarding what was it?
The finance?
Yes. The financial
10%,
15% that.
Okay, let me take this. You get your thoughts together. Make a note of it. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Webbo, this is Carlton. The good gentleman who rang you a while ago, sometimes I'm so disappointed with him, but I'm learning more and more as I become older to just get accustomed to people's opinion. This gentleman, he is the main man who spoke highly of the unity setup. That when the time comes, Sean will get a chance and Timothy will hand over to Sean nicely because Timothy is a great man. How come when he call you, he don't discuss something like what Mark Brantley had to do last night? I was sleeping. But this is the problem I have with him. But I'm learning to make sure give him respect. Because that's the only way we could make it. I'm a Bible man. I cannot understand some people. Some people speak nicely one time and then the next time forget what they say and can come and say, okay, well, I am the one who speak about this particular stuff. Let me see if I could ask why this is not happening. This gentleman.
Well, caller, let me ask. Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Let me ask you this, because everybody's gonna have their own view, and what I want to do is to maybe let's get to the heat of the heart of the matter, right? Now you mentioned who you are, right? So we will accept that. Normally we don't, we will set just the caller, and you said that you had a business.
Yes.
Now, if you Mr. Stanley, personally you don't like him, and he comes to St. Kitts in your business, it's good afternoon, Mr. DuPont, I have this, do you have some gold or whatever? Yes, sir. It costs you $500, so Stanley gives you his $500 or whatever, and so on and so forth. You don't like him. Comes to the business, according to your price, according to the product, you do it. What's wrong with that?
That is good.
Okay. So in our situation, I'm hearing a lot of this person say, well, this is from Nevis, your brothers, sisters, and so on and so forth. Let's suppose we put that aside.
All right.
And then you said to Mr. Stanley, or Mr. Stanley says to you, you may not like me, but this thing is $500. You give me my $500, and we're gone. You can continue to don't like me. What if we begin to operate that way? What needs to be done, we get it done, and take the personalities out of it.
Oh, I'm reading you. But in this case, the personality mean a lot. I'll tell you why, Webbo. This gentleman used to be my very good friend, and we all work for the same purpose. But all of a sudden, the purpose has changed. But we don't discuss why the purpose changed. That is what bothering me.
Right, but what I'm saying is that if we have an arrangement. We have St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yes.
Regardless to who the Prime Minister or the Premier is, if you have something that is supposed to be for Nevis, you get it to Nevis. If it is supposed to be for St. Kitts, you get it for St. Kitts, whether the Prime Minister and the Premier like one another or not. What's wrong with that?
But that is not what happening.
Right, so that's what I'm asking. So can we do that? Because as far as I know, that if the monies that Nevis was getting, for instance, is monies that whether it was A or B were there, it belongs to the country, correct?
Yes.
And whether you like me or you like one set of people or not, you're supposed to have it given to the country, correct?
Praise the Lord.
So I don't understand what is all this bickering about who like who and who don't like who, because if Mr. Brantley and Mr. Harris were getting along, maybe the civil servants in Nevis, out of the whatever money, might have got their share, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So because they don't get along, St. Kitts people or the people in St. Kitts will get their share, but Nevis people won't, because those two don't get along, correct?
Correct.
That makes sense?
Not at all, Webbo.
Okay.
Not at all. Webbo, let me tell you something in case people don't remember. I have been fighting this fight with all the prime ministers.
Right. So I'm asking is, can we get to a stage where you don't have to fight that fight?
Okay. Let's hope so.
Okay.
Let's hope so, and let's give somebody else a chance then.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hi.
You're on the air. Could you go ahead?
Oh, I'm on the air?
Yes.
This guy here, he has his own talk show. Why don't he, whatever he has to say?
Walk with me. Hello. Walk
yeah,
with
but you keep him back other people.
Hello.
Yes.
Don't do that. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Nobody just keep...
I got you. Let's don't do that. Right? What I want folks to do is to be considerate of each other. Let's stick on the issues. You call and you take, as I normally say for 3 decades, organize yourself, take as little time as possible, but make your point, and we can accommodate as many folks as possible. So let's don't get into a big back and forth, and let's stick with the issues. And again, like I say, I understand it, I get it, because people are real passionate at this particular time, and I've been around a while, so I understand how it works, right? So let's be calm about it. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hey, good night, Webbo.
Yes.
I just heard a break on the program. Somebody was carrying us there. I listen. So
Okay. Good night. Enjoy your evening.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Stanley. See, that's an example there. The fellow just wanted us to know he's listening, and he was very polite. So I said, okay, I got you, and thank you for listening. That's a light moment, right? Okay. So, Edric, you were saying?
Based on what the Prime Minister has given to his constituency, St. Kitts, which, as Prime Minister, his constituency is for the whole country, and not for him to be selective and have a favorite St. Kitts and put St. Kitts against Nevis. And therefore, we are entitled to our fair share. And based on the formula which is set out in the Constitution, they don't have to go anywhere. They know the Constitution, and therefore.
Bedrick, well, can I cut in here and ask you this, because of a bold statement you've made. You say that we entitled to a fair share in reference to Nevis. What if I argue not everybody on Nevis think that we should get that?
That is ludicrous. It is in the Constitution. The framers specifically laid it out, spelled it out, and as a consequence, we should not have to ask for it. It should be forthcoming simply because it is inscribed in the highest law of the land.
And to the argument, Mr. Stanley, okay, you get the monies, but the current NIA is wasting it. You say what?
That is based on somebody's judgment. That's a judgment call somebody has made. Doesn't mean that it is true. Because if you look at the transformation that has occurred in Nevis, it speaks volumes.
And if you're wasting it, it doesn't mean that if it's yours, you mustn't get it, right?
Put it bluntly.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. I don't know why we keep kicking the can down the road, but we're doing it, and we've always been doing it. To say that the fair share is wedded to the Constitution that is not necessarily so, because otherwise we would not have been in this situation. Right? It's obvious that even though some kind of revenue sharing arrangement is in the Constitution, that is just there as a matter of convenience, right? To be broken whenever particular personalities or individuals see fit to do that. The question is, how do we close all the loopholes so that regardless to who is in power, regardless to who the personalities are, those revenue sharing things are set in stone. We cannot depend on personalities to do the right thing.
But caller, before you go any further, and I don't get it thereafter, you mentioned something about something that's written in the Constitution but is only there for convenience. Can you explain that again for me?
When I said for convenience, meaning that if it is convenience, it is ignored. That is why we're here, right? Because if the Constitution was followed to the letter,
walk with me. So you are not saying that is how it is supposed to be utilized, but you're saying that people misuse it. That's what you're saying?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. All right, I got you.
Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right? And the question then becomes, how do we set something like that in stone so it doesn't matter who the personalities are, though the constitutional arrangements will be followed to the letter.
But arguably, caller, though, it is set that way. But what I'm gathering from you, it's like the old talk and argument we normally have about electoral reform and electoral laws and so on. And my contribution to that normally is, it may not be so much that you need to change the laws, but if people are hell-bent on ignoring or breaking things, they will do it.
Yeah, but that is why we have things like laws and constitutions.
Right. So if it is already written clearly as should follow it, and then you're saying that for convenience of some people they choose not what to follow and what not to follow, then we have an issue not with the laws and the rules, but with the character of the people.
No, because you see, if the Constitution or the law is broken, there is a possibility of redress in the judicial system.
Depending on who breaking it. You agree with that?
No, not why it depends.
Well, let me ask you this. What if is
supposed to be blind?
Walk with me. What if is the person, if I were the one who is supposed to exercise a particular thing, and I decide not to, or breaks it, then what?
It's challenging in court.
And then that also, can it not be, as you mentioned, a strategy as well, because challenging in court takes time and so on and so forth, and time might be of the essence for certain things?
But we're talking well over 36 years since independence.
Okay,
right?
All right.
I don't care how long it would normally take. This should have been settled a long time ago.
What should have been settled?
The revenue sharing arrangement between St. Kitts and Nevis.
Right. Settled by who?
By the court, so that if to show that at least the Constitution is not being followed.
Okay. All right. I got you.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're not doing that.
Okay. I got you.
Right.
Let's go to another corner.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Webber,
Yes.
there is something called the spirit of the law, the spirit. When it comes to revenue sharing between St. Kitts and Nevis, we don't need laws. All we need is godliness. Because the Bible says godliness with contentment is great gain. I cannot believe that in 2022, we're still bickering over what Nevis is supposed to get. And hear this. This is why I love Mark Brantley so much. The passport mark St. Kitts Nevis. All we are asking is for our fair share of what comes in from the passport. It don't need no law. It should be a natural flow like water going down a stream.
Yeah, but caller, to be fair, the world doesn't work like that though.
Okay.
When you put things together and you say, man, we is friends, we don't need to sign anything, you're looking for trouble. You agree with that?
I agree with that.
Okay.
But Webber, let me
Yes.
tell you this before we leave. If we were dealing with the spirit of the law and fair play and fairness, Sean Richards would have been the Prime Minister tonight.
Okay. And you know, somewhere, somehow, it is written or said, life is not fair.
But God is good.
Every time.
Have a wonderful evening.
You as well. Good evening. Okay, please call back. I'm trying to see whether or not, well, the discussion is interesting in terms of how people think you should go about doing things. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hello, good evening, Webbo.
Yes.
You know, the kind of, good evening to the rest of the panel and the rest of the listening public. You know, the kind of thing that disturbed me is that here we have one of our brilliant teachers who is saying that after everything is laid out in the Constitution, he still wants it written in stone. And the people must do that. You know, I mean, is this what we're teaching our youth? Is this what we're teaching our youth?
You see, caller, you could I point out something to you? Sure. That is what democracy is all about, and that is what persuasion is all about. For instance, if you were listening to the first segment of the program, right?
Yes, sir.
We had a gentleman on who says he's a developer.
Yes.
And he's pointing out that he was doing this project and he had some setbacks and he's all ready to go now. But then he says now he's ready to go, the NIA is, well, taking some time. And he gives every reason why everybody should get on board and go with this thing.
Well,
but
Webbo, that whole interview was very instructive, you know. And that's where I said, you know, everybody got their opinion, and I jump off the ship right there.
Right. So you see what happens now is that when you hear the other side is something else. Okay.
Yes,
go ahead.
This is the kind of thing that the Premier often talk about. A guy that come in with his briefcase, empty briefcase, and one New Visions. You know, he quite willing and happy to sell his shares to New Visions. But my friend there on the panel with you, he asked a pertinent question. Where is your skin in the game? You know, and we individuals need to wake up and look and see where this thing is going.
And you know, the other point, caller, finally, is that the one caller I put a scenario to, if you're a businessman and you don't like somebody, and you're a businessman as well, right? And if Naya calls you to do a job, but you don't like Naya, you have your rules of operation, you do the job, you have your costing sheet and stuff like that, your thing, and you collect your cash or your check and you're gone, right?
Yeah.
But if you just, just one more thing, if you just operate based on whether you like somebody or not, not so sure it'll work out that way.
Well,
so with certain things, you got to operate a certain way.
A friend of mine told me one time, he said, boy, I don't work for CCM people, I don't work for NRP people. I ain't getting involved, I keep my opinion to myself.
Yeah, so I want us to look at the fact that whether this person like that person and that person doesn't like the person, what does the rule say or the guidelines say? And let's go according to the guidelines. I had a discussion and the person says, okay, you could keep your love, but give me my money.
Yeah, but I get back to that point I made some weeks ago. Let us just do what the Constitution says. Don't let the law have to determine it. Everybody playing smart. Let us stop playing smart and do what is right.
Okay.
Stop playing smart and do what is right.
All right.
Brother, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes?
Yes, as I was saying, based on the constitutional arrangement, the framers enshrined in the Constitution a formula, and therefore that formula must be followed, and if it is not followed, we go to the High Court to get redress. It's simple. But some people went along with the arrangement without looking at it from a constitutional point of view and settled with whatever Sinkits gave us. And because we settled with it for so long a period, it becomes the new normal. But somebody else came into the high chair in Nevis as the Premier, who is Mark Brantley. And I would say on this program that he continually told me, we're not getting our fair share. And as a result, I wasn't surprised at his text. The issue at the opening of the party's convention, he uses the fair share as his basic argument. And today we are finding out why we are not getting our fair share, to the tune of big money. As a result, he will continue to agitate for us to get our fair share because the passports are sold. It's a product that has been developed by Nevis at first, and Sinkit latched on to it. Now they want to become the biggest beneficiary of that product that we have more or less designed. It was designed on the same manual.
Yeah, but the only problem... Well, go ahead.
So, it's only fair, right, and proper for us to get our fair share. And, to be honest...
Good evening, let me get this. Good evening, thank you for holding.
While Mr. Stanley on that point, I want to strengthen it. I am very good at calculation even though I didn't attend school. When I sit down and calculate, taking out bills for different things, police and different things that the federal government got to take care of, is around $500 million over the past 12 years or so that has been kept in St. Kitts from Nevis, you know. $500 million roughly. It could be more, but I'm just conservative. How this could be? How can we promote love? And how can we harness young children who are coming up to show them the type of way we should be doing things? We cannot continue to treat Nivision like second-class citizens. Again again.
Okay. Yes, Naya.
Well, would that caller that talk about something be written in stone and so forth? To me, it's and this idea about going to court, you know, to clarify issues with the Constitution, it's almost you know, not sustainable, because, for instance, with this particular debate about fair share money coming over every month or whenever it does come over, how often we would have to go to court? How often we would have to go to court? It's in the Constitution. It's already law. You're supposed to abide by it. Yes, we can have redress in court, but when you send this month and you fail to send next month, what happened? You know, it's the Constitution needs a degree of honesty for it to function. And
that's the stone. It's being enshrined in. The Constitution is just like a stone.
Well, yes. So what a stone is on about, and this idea of redress in the court, yes, that's the place we go for redress. But how often we will have to go?
Good evening. Let me take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes. I'd just like Mr. Stanley to clarify something. You're saying that Tim Daniel was the one who...
Listen, we're not going to have a debate right now on who started it, because unless somebody can bring some hard evidence, we're going to end up talking about that person that, and I don't know where you're going to get. So let's end that right there, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Webbo, how are you, man?
Yes.
Man, I'll just put it this way. A constitution is a document. It's only as good as the people, or the will of the people, how willing they are to follow it. If men are not willing to follow it, and people are not held accountable for not following it, it means nothing. We moved away, you know what the Constitution says. Basically, it's a proportional provision in the Constitution in terms of sharing between the islands. 1991, after that, we moved away from that. So that laid that dormant in the Constitution to some extent. The bottom line to this whole thing, what we have with CBI is an off-the-books revenue generator. It's not considered within the budget. It's not considered within our revolving fund in terms of revenues and expenditures. It's off the books. The oversight and accountability, it lacks. So nobody knows, for a long time, nobody really knows what's in that fund. The result of that is, of course, the Prime Minister, or whoever the Prime Minister is at the day. We have a powerful Prime Minister because of how the system is. But, you know, we must be men of goodwill. And men of goodwill at the table make big decisions. And make decisions with an eye towards the future and holding together a country in terms of fairness, and they're accountable. When the Charleston Accord was written, it was written where every one of those signatories who wrote that constitution, who signed that document, the Charleston Accord, when they signed on to it, they knew the backdrop of the Constitution, and they knew they had the assumption that the so-called fair share would be used in the backdrop of the Constitution. So, to me, it's not missing on anybody to know what we should get. It's embedded. It doesn't have to be codified or any of this stuff.
Okay.
They knew. So it requires men of goodwill to do the right thing.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
Okay, thank you. I don't know how long it will take to get us to understand and appreciate that if I give you an IOU, right, you've done all that you could in terms of legally and try to create something binding and stuff like that. And then, if you don't pay me, you just start to bluff and stuff like that, and so it happens. You got gangsters operating in every phase, right? So that's how the world is. So no matter sometimes what document you sign and so on and so forth, sometimes if a person has no intent, they just do what they have to do, and then when the time comes, otherwise. And that is why, even as you go to different discussions and so on, you have to listen and assess and so on and so forth, and hope that in the end of the day, based on how people present themselves, you make what you call, quote unquote, a right decision. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yeah, good night. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, anyway, we could take them to court for some of the money what Douglas deprived Navy Jones from, the $1.5 billion.
The numbers are there.
Yeah, well, I would like that, because if you can't get nothing settled outside, let me go to the Privy Council, since they're going to say that, go to the World Bank. You know, I believe we should go to the Privy Council and let the world see how they just treat Nevis. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Let me just say this, Webbo. The passport, the national passport, is a product that should be included.
Let me ask this: haven't we not gone beyond all that? I work with me. I think we're at the stage of that we know we get the money. We know it's a St. Kitts Nevis passport. The issue we are at now is whether or not somebody get 90 and somebody get 1, right? So let's zero in on that.
So
walk with me, okay? Let's zero in on that. Else we just will get no result, and we want result. Good evening, thank you for holding.
I am telling you,
good evening, you're on the air.
Good evening, Mr. Webbo. And can we tell the people who give us this constitution to court? Forgive us this foolishness? Can we do that? Can the people who give us the constitution to court? So everybody can go court. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, let me say this, Webbo. The offshore business is a product that we, in fact, designed. And it's just like you've got generally an automobile, but eventually somebody figured out, I'm going to come up with a Tesla, I'm going to come up with a Chevrolet, a Ford, as the case might be. And the passport becomes an offshoot of the offshore business.
So therefore what?
So I'm saying to you, and to the gentleman who said something in the past, so I'm saying to you, it is part of our GDP, and therefore we are entitled to whatever the gross national product is of St. Kitts Nevis. We are entitled to our fair share.
Okay. Let me get a break. This is Talk That Get Results with Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nile Libert. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and 1700. We'll be back after these.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results. We had 2 segments to the program. We had a developer here in Nevis, and interesting, the Ammon Hotel, and he gave us his perspective on that project. We will see what happens with that. The second half, we're taking your calls on varied issues. But I made a statement in the earlier part of the program, so in case you joined us late, I just wanted to reiterate that especially around this time, we understand that people are getting very passionate and emotional. But I want to remind everybody of the standards that we carry here at Vaughan Radio, and we're going to stick to that. Now, we're not denying anybody from having their opinion, their free speech and everything and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, we promote that. What we don't want is persons to begin to slander people, use hurtful words and stuff like that. I'm not saying that you must not do that to anybody you feel, but you got WhatsApp, you have a lot of other ways you can do that. What we're saying is that we have a forum here that we want people to be very forceful with their point, but respectful. Here's an example. People calling people cook and thief and kunumoni and stuff like that, not here. Whether it is On the Mark, whether it's Let's Talk that get result, whether it is Your Voice with the NRP or whatever other program you're afforded the opportunity to call in, we will not accept it. In other words, put another way simply, if that's your MO, you're not welcome. Okay? Now, I think that most of us will be able to operate within that, but I just thought it was fair to reiterate it so people will understand. And you know how we roll. If we say it, we mean it. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Webbo, good evening. In all that's going on in the Federation, have you heard anything from the Brandies Association or the Critical Council? Have any statement been made?
Not to my knowledge.
I think it's time for them to come on board.
Mm-hmm. You think so? You think that will help and it'll make a difference?
Yeah, I think it will make a difference in the community because of these are people that have about 80% of the persons in St. Kitts Navy Church.
And you have examples that they have done it before and it made a difference?
Yeah.
When?
In 1993.
1993? The Four Seasons Accord?
Yeah.
That made a difference?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that made a difference to calm things down.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I got you. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Thank you, Mr. Webbo, for that statement you just made, because last night was very insulting. Thank you. Bye.
Oh, okay. Have a good evening. Yes.
So what I'm saying now is that based on where we are constitutionally and governmentally, the House has been dissolved, the Parliament has been dissolved by the Prime Minister. He has brought to the fore 5 members of Parliament, 2 of whom are not elected.
Just hold your thought there. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Mr. Herbert.
I'm a bit confused and concerned, and I'm talking about the statement that the Prime Minister made a few nights ago about the 10% raise for civil servants and pensioners. I didn't hear him say that it was only for Kitchen. Did you? Can you help me here?
It seemed to me that he said St. Kitts and Nevis.
So if it's St. Kitts and Nevis, I'm wondering then why is the Premier now saying 5% from revision? Wouldn't it be a raise of salary for the people in the Federation, the government workers in the Federation?
Yeah, well, you heard the Premier's statement?
Yeah, but it would be confusing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if the money would come over from St. Kitts to pay the civil servants in Nevis, and it was split up, 5% this year and 5% next year. I really don't know.
You're wondering if the monies did come over, but then the Premier decided he's going to use it in this fashion?
Yeah.
I don't get that impression. I'm sure what I can do, I can send him a message and ask him if he can clarify it tomorrow evening when he does his program. But I got the impression that he didn't get the monies, so therefore he had to maybe do some borrowing or whatever to make sure that the people in Nevis get theirs as well. But I can send him a message and ask him to clarify it tomorrow.
Yeah, but my thing is, you could do that to, if the Prime Minister said that the Federation, the government workers of the Federation are going to get a raise, then the money should be sent from Nevis over to Nevis.
I got you.
So that's what I'm kind of concerned about, because it sounds kind of strange to me.
Right, because caller, if you were listening earlier, I basically was asking the question rhetorically that if you and I are supposed to be co-workers or whatever, and you're supposed to give me some reports at the end of the day, you normally do it, but this day, for some personal reason, we ain't talking. That means you don't give me the report?
No, not at all.
Okay, so that seems to be what is happening.
Well, that's crazy stuff. Or the other thing that I was thinking about, petition's going to be, the workers in Sync is going to be getting the 10% raise, and the workers in News are going to be getting 10% plus 5%. It's kind of confusion.
Yeah, okay, well,
if we can clarify.
Yeah, let's do this. I'll send him a message. I'll ask him if he can clarify it tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Good evening. You're on the air.
Good night, Robert. Good night.
You're on the air. Could you go?
Good night to your panelist, Weber. This is Mr. Politics. You're calling me from Sync. Just yourself. Now, Weber, start to the lady sound confusing to me, because the Prime Minister come on and say you're going to get 10% to the people store in the Federation that Sync is leaving. And to me, that sounds very political ticklish when the Premier come on and say you're going to give the 5% for whatever, whatever. I mean, to be real, right? We had a unity government that's doing so well, and no other government ever come in this federation.
Caller, before you go on with that,
yes.
So your understanding of what the Prime Minister said was that when he said he's giving the 10%, he was referring to the civil servants in Nevis and the civil servants in the civil servants in St. Kitts and the civil servants in Nevis.
Yes.
And therefore you were of the view that the federal government will pay that bill.
Yes.
Okay. Well, as I just said to a lady, we'll ask Mr. Premier if he actually got the money so that he can operate on this end and see where it goes from there.
Because it is time enough now, that the politicians can stop playing our head when it comes to election time. Because this unity government was doing things without election. Look, we get 5 double salaries. Remember before, in the past, we get double salaries. Even under the farm administration with Dr. Kennedy Simon, we get double salaries. When in what time? When remember the sugar workers in water?
Right.
And only coming up when the election coming up, they do something to sweeten up. But since this unity government gets in with the chief political party, with the PLP, PCM, and PAM, this thing stop. It can make every third of the month or every sometime something happens, something due to the citizens of this country, the workers of the country, and it wasn't political. And
okay, so what? Right. So what you say now is political.
But it got to be political, Robert.
Yeah, what? Yeah, right. So you said work with me. So now you said they're going to do things that are political now.
Well, but it got to be political. It got to be political.
Yeah, what has to be political?
Well, the Prime Minister don't get the 10%.
And that
and it put many going consider he going to put 5%.
No, the Premier didn't. So you're saying that the Prime Minister did give 10% to the Nevision workers?
Well, I believe that's through the whole federal cabinet.
No, right. So that work with me. Work with me.
Yes.
So that is what you believe based on what the Prime Minister said?
Yes.
Okay. And then the Premier went on and added another 5% so the divisions would get 15%. That's what you're... Hello, work with me. Work with me. So your understanding and belief now that whereas the Prime Minister gave St. Kitts workers 10% and Nevis workers 10%, the Premier was playing politics and went and gave Nevis an additional 5%, although work with me. Okay? So the Premier now is playing politics by the Prime Minister giving 10% of federal monies, and then the Premier comes and add 5% of Nevis Island administration monies. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
And that the Premier is playing politics?
Yes, he's playing politics.
So what we will do, we will ask him to address that tomorrow night as well. Let's hear from somebody.
I hope he address it.
Yes, let's walk with me, Mr. Politics.
Yes.
Let's hear from somebody else.
All right then, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay then, okay, you take care then, okay.
Okay. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Hello, good evening, Webbo. How are you?
I'm well, and you?
Good night.
Yes.
Oh, my. Some people have to understand and get the drift. You're trying to explain to that person, but they still going their own way. Yes, what I calling to say, as Sister Island, I mean, I suppose we still go to this, if they only go back in cabinet, sit down on the round table and trash it out. Because they very well knew. They didn't give Nevis all of the share. Because they didn't give Nevis all the share after Mr. Brantley did make a statement last month. Why they send a policeman with an envelope? And that is what causing this stupidness. When children may need to go through this back and forth. Give me marble. I may take it up for. We need all of that. We're too big for that. And this money, passport money they talk about. When I hear Europe and all them here, this going to cut out. What we going to do? They're going to be no money there to argue about. I think us big people, things could have been done better, Mr. Webbo. Just as this go to accept the people call and got a little meeting here, meeting there. Don't put up yourself after your convention, but we're tired. And when you look, people are seeing you, calling in people and where you're staying, or forget me and having conversation, having meeting and stuff. And that's what get the other people, Mr. Brantley and Mr. Sean and others get upset.
Okay, caller, we gotta go. So we thank you very much.
That could have otherwise.
Yeah.
I think it should could have gone smoother now. It's all upset to all Kittichon and division. After my grandmother come out by father's side.
Yeah, well, let's.
My grandmother come out by my mother's
side.
Yeah,
let's keep. Yeah. Now you think you can give me a final word in half a minute?
Yes, Webbo, it's about hopeful divisions. Do we feel more hopeful with the new administration in St. Kitts and we being a part of it? I don't think so, Webbo. So Nevis is going to have to solve this problem amongst ourselves by probably having the conversation of secession more often here in Nevis.
Edric Stanley, you think you can give me a final word in half a minute?
Well, based on the arrangement constitutionally, we don't have to go to any World Bank to figure out what is owed. The numbers are there. Numbers don't lie. And whether you go back 20 years, we will be able to come up with the right amount that they got for us. And we need every penny that they owe Nevisians.
So you don't think we have to go to any World Bank?
No.
Okay, what about the idea that the caller had? If you go to the World Bank, I'm going to the Privy Council.
That is irrelevant.
This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, taught that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Views and opinions expressed on the preceding program are solely those of the participants and do